Hello, my name is Diamond, aka Lady Leo. Welcome to my YouTube channel, or welcome back if you are a returning viewer. So as part of my holiday series, I decided to watch one of the many Netflix holiday rom-coms that they drop. I think they dropped about 3 or 4 this year already, but the one that caught my eye was Hot Frosty. I'm going to get into like the name in a minute, but I sat down and watched this movie during the week because at this point in time, all the shows that I watch are on hiatus for the holidays. So I figured, what the hell? I don't have anything else to watch. And yeah, I wanted to see what Hot Frosty was about. I wouldn't say that I watch the Netflix holiday rom-coms a lot. It just kind of depends on how bored I am. But I do have a favorite. Which is Operation Christmas Drop. So if you've never seen it, it's on Netflix. It's one of their own movies. It's one of my favorites, and I'll get into why, at the end of the video. But I want to just do a play-by-play of Hot Frosty because I spent an hour and a half long. So we're going to do like a play-by-play, and then I'll kind of give you like my thoughts on the movie. So let's get into talking about Hot Frosty. So this holiday Netflix rom-com, I'm just going to call it a Holo-Rom because I just don't want to have to say that whole thing every time I'm talking about like specifically holiday rom-com. So like Holo-Rom means holiday rom-coms exclusively from Netflix. Hopefully you get it. All right. So this movie came out in November. I'm pretty sure it came out in November. I'm filming this in the end of November, so it came out sometime in this month. It stars Lacey Chabert from Mean Girls. I'm sure she's done other things. That's the thing that I most know her from. And I'm convinced that my girl doesn't age. She looks good. And then Dustin Milligan. I do not know who he is, but I looked up his IMDb page. He has a lot of acting credits in there, but nothing that I've seen, so I don't know who he is. Those are our two leads, so let's get into Hot Frosty. Also, just a side note on Dustin Milligan when I was watching this. He looks like he could be an older version of Robbie from Cobra Kai. They look like they could be related, or like I said, like an older version. He just looks he reminds me a lot of Robbie. So I didn't want to read any descriptions. I haven't watched any videos about this movie. I wanted to go in fully unprepared. I mean, I feel like when you're watching one of these Holo-Roms, you kind of know what you're getting. You're getting cheese, specifically centered around the holiday, unrealistic love expectations, an absurd series of events that causes people to fall in love in an hour and a half. You typically know what you're getting, but I didn't really know what this one was about. I just knew the name was interesting, so I was like, well, I'm intrigued. And the funny thing is, like, whoever decided that Hot Frosty was the name that they were going to go with is just a terrible name in my mind. It feels like they were in like a room and they're like, okay, what should we name this? And people were just throwing out names, and somebody was like, what about Hot Frosty? And they probably fully meant it as a joke. And then the Netflix admins are just like, yeah, that'll do. And the person's like, no, sorry. I was joking. Yeah, but we still have to finish Arcane, and we have like a dozen other TV shows that have to come out this week. So like Hot Frosty sounds ridiculous enough that people will watch, and we want the watch time hours. So let's do it. Let's print it and let's move on. You know what I mean? It feels like that's how the name got to be Hot Frosty. When I think of it, my mind immediately goes to like a Frosty from Wendy's, which I know is not what they're going for. They're going for like a play on Jack Frost, but my mind just doesn't really go to Jack Frost. I just think, why would somebody want a warm Frosty from Wendy's? I'm sure they could have gone with a lot of other titles. They decided to go with this one. I mean, it definitely made me click on it, so I guess it worked. The movie starts out in a random snow-filled city, probably in the Midwest. I think the name of the town is called Hope Springs, where we meet our main girl, Kathy. So they do this whole montage where she gets out of bed. She has like a blanket, and then she goes to dump water. Like there's a whole series of things that she does, which is to establish that there's a lot of things that are like broken down in her house. So yeah, we're setting that up for something that's coming later on. And then we go to her job. She owns a cafe, which is good. Good for you, girl. Don't knock the hustle. But she owns her own little cafe in a small town. I will say that like the movie's only been on for like a few minutes, but it got like a proper chuckle out of me, which I know was fully unintentional, because as she's going to her cafe and like getting set up for the morning, she keeps mentioning the annual snowman building competition, which is kind of like in the center of town in relation to like where her cafe is. Like her cafe is right here, and like in the middle of town they're doing this snow building. I laughed because it looks like whatever they're using to replicate snow, it looks like styrofoam. Maybe it's not, but it looks so obviously not like snow that it's just laughable. It's like starkly white, and it's like, that's definitely not how snow would perform. I get it. I know that most of the time in these movies, they're not using actual snow because snow just doesn't perform that way. So I get that they wouldn't be using actual snow. However, I have seen a lot of fake snow that looks very convincing. I was not convinced. And like, because they cut immediately from like Kathy in her cafe, I was like, I kind of laughed a bit. Anyway, so fast forward to her going to like a neighboring shop. And in this neighboring shop, they basically, I guess she's friends with the people at the shop. And essentially the lady is really nice. And she's like, here, take this scarf. You never know what might happen. So Kathy then proceeds to look through the built snowmen, and she stops on one that is like modeled like a man. And she proceeds to put the scarf that was just given to her around the snowman's neck. First off, I don't really think she intended for her to keep the scarf. I think she was doing it as like a gesture of goodwill. Like, here, take this scarf, feel better about something I'm going to talk about a little bit later on. But you know what I mean? And not only that, she immediately just leaves it out in the cold. I would have been mad if I saw my scarf on a snowman in the elements that I gave to somebody that I considered to be a friend as a gesture of goodwill. But I digress. Kathy puts the scarf on the chiseled snow styrofoam and takes a picture of it. And when she takes a picture, there's like a little glisten at his eye, like he's crying. And I guess that's how the magic gets started. It's a good time to mention, like before I go through the rest of the movie, there's no real explanation for like how he's able to come back to life. I know that sounds crazy, but like sometimes when you have these movies where you're like, oh, you know, this person came back to life through magic, sometimes it's like built into the foundation of the town, like it's a town lore or something like that. With this, they're just going full magical without any explanation. She didn't really do anything except put the scarf on him and take a picture, and that brought him back to life. Anyway, there's some swirling snow that night, and our snowman comes to life fully nude. This is the first time like we see our lead, and I can't really decide how I feel when people take roles like this. On the one hand, I'm like, well, as an actor, you know, you don't get paid unless you're working, you know what I mean? So not every single role can be like this amazing experience that's like this amazing movie, you know what I mean? So in the case of Dustin Milligan, I'm sure he knew what this was, especially if he read the script. I'm assuming he did. But they start by thirst trapping him immediately. So when he goes from being a snowman to a real living human, you know, he's completely nude at first with just the scarf covering his bits. So I'm like, so that's where we're going with this. They thirst trap him a lot, at least in the first third of this movie, but like that's the first time you see him and he's completely nude, albeit very attractive. And I'm sure this movie knows what it's doing. I mean, it knows what it's doing in the beginning. Anyway, so essentially there's some people walking their dog, and they stumble across him, and essentially, I'm sorry, the movie gets a second laugh out of me because he's naked, right? And he needs some clothes. So the store window, so like the lady who gave Kathy, our main girl, the scarf, so sorry, what I was saying was that the movie got a second proper laugh out of me because he literally is like, oh, I need some clothes. And he back breaks the clothes. It's so funny because it is so fake. It's hilarious. Like he's just standing there at a store window and he literally just backs into it and he fully breaks the glass panel, like the floor to ceiling glass window, and he steals some clothes. Moving along, Kathy eventually meets our beautiful himbo, whose biceps seem to be constantly flexed, at least in the first third of this movie, because he's fully thirst trapped. And then, like, the other part of the movie, they're like, oh, we gotta make this a rom-com, so we gotta, tone it down a little bit. So Craig Robinson's in this movie, by the way, as well. I wish I could say he adds something to it, but he doesn't. He doesn't really add that much to it. He's just there as a cop who thinks he's in the FBI. He's like a cop for a small town, but my guy thinks he's running the CIA or something. So yeah, Craig Robinson's in here. Sometimes he gets a few laughs out of me. Sometimes it doesn't land. But moving along, a side that happens too, where like Kathy realizes how cold Jack is, like literally freezing, and then she takes him to the doctor and he's below freezing, and she's like, that's not possible. Okay, all right, sorry, this is a really good time to just kind of explain. I feel like if there was a couple of adjustments made in this movie could have worked. Well, maybe more than a couple, but like the concept that he runs cold because he's a snowman is kind of fascinating, but at the same time, it's not logically possible. But I get it, we're going with the magical element. But still, I don't, do we even need this scene? Like the scene with him and the doctor doesn't add anything to it. And I feel like we could take out this whole subplot about him running cold, specifically and eating ice, because it just doesn't really add anything. And you could probably put some other things in there that might be better. But anyway, what happens after that? Let me look at my notes. So Kathy's like, you know what, beautiful himbo Jack? That's just the name from the clothes he stole. You can stay in my house because you don't have anywhere to go, anything to do. First off, Kathy, my girl, I know you live in a small town, but he's a complete stranger. He could be faking it. And you're going to let him stay in your house? Not only does she let him stay in her house, she does it alone. Like she originally is like, hey, I got to go back to my diner, cafe. It's a cafe. I have to go back to my restaurant. So, stay here. Don't steal anything. I'll be back in a few hours. Girly pop. No, you cannot stay in my house alone without me, and you're a complete stranger. Oh my God, no, girl, no. But okay, so she goes back to work, and then he's in there watching TV. I should also mention that the movie kind of vacillates between him being aware of things and him not being aware of things. Like, he understands what certain things means, but he doesn't understand what other things mean. Realistically, if you're going to set up the premise that he came into existence and he has the physical body of a man, he would have the mentality of a baby because he doesn't know anything, right? So like he wouldn't even know how to speak, because English is not something that you're hardwired with from birth. You have to learn it. You know what I mean? So realistically, it would be him not knowing anything, not knowing how to speak, not knowing how, he wouldn't know any of the things that are cultural either, like what a cross is when he's watching a vampire movie. But the movie can't really commit to that. So it just decides to do this thing where there is some things he understands and there's some things he doesn't understand, which I'm just incredibly annoyed by. And again, they use this to thirst trap him, because after Kathy goes to the diner, I think she speaks to the cops, and that's how she finds out the cops are looking for him. And she decides she's definitely not going to tell them about this guy. Girl, you're making a lot of concessions for a complete stranger. You're hiding him in your house? I'd give him over to the cops because I don't have any loyalty to him. But anyway, she goes back to her house, and what was I? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. What was I? What I was getting at is that when she comes back to the house after leaving him alone, she's like, I got you some more clothes. And he's like, okay. And then he immediately goes to take off what he's wearing. So much so that it goes down to like, showing the goods. And she's like, not in front of me. Again, they do this really so that they can thirst trap him. And oh God, the objectification. I'm sure there are some people out there who would just be like, oh my God. But I mean, if you really want that, you can really just go watch porn. Isn't that more satisfying than just seeing an attractive man walk around? But I don't know. Anyway, so sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. I was just trying to make a point. But anyway, so while he's at her house by himself, he is nosy and he literally goes down to the basement really so we can find out that her husband died. And before I even saw it, I was like, I'm sure she has a dead husband from something, probably car crash, disease, cancer, killed in combat. My money was on some kind of disease or cancer. It is cancer. You know, they always have a dead relative. You can just have people like not have their relationship work out. It's okay. You don't need to have like a dead spouse, as that's the only way for people to be in a position where they, are alone, is if they have a dead spouse. I'm just saying. Anyway, so I would say that when Kathy goes back to the diner after leaving her at his house, this is when I realized that it's very clear to me, I could be wrong, but it seems like they are filming on a studio, which is, I know a lot of movies get filmed in a studio, but it's very clear that, like, to me, it's like all in one place. And it's just, they go from generic location 1 to generic location 2. You know what I mean? Like, it's like every few minutes they go to a different set location that is part of the same set drop, if that makes sense. And it's just really boring. And I feel like the movie's like, okay, it's been a few minutes. It's time for us to change location, as if that somehow makes the plot go further, like moving the plot along. But in reality, it doesn't. It just, nothing is still really happening. You're just moving locations. But maybe they're like, it feels like something happening. I was just bored. I swear, the movie's only an hour and a half long, but I swear to God, after 30 minutes, I started checking my watch. I'm like, are we getting close? We're not. We still had an hour left. I was just like, God, this is so boring. Okay, let me get to what happened last, because I wrote all my notes down, so I want you to hear them. So I think what happens is, like, we've gone to the next day. So the first day, Snowman comes to life. Kathy let him live in her house. He went down to the basement, found out her husband is dead. And the cops are looking for Jack. And Kathy decides, for some wild reason, that she is going to protect him. She's like, listen, you got to stay low. You can't leave the house. As if he's like, what does stay low mean? Very frustrating to me, because he'll just do these things where he's like, I have no idea what this means. And then other times he's like, I watched a video about how to make a pizza and I can make a pizza and stuff, which is what happens next. So Kathy comes home on day 2 and he made her a whole ass pizza, some fresh eggnog with some fresh grated nutmeg. She just has all this stuff in her house. I mean, the house that's like falling apart. She got what she needs to make pizza and everything. I guess so. They have a moment of bonding where they talk about, I don't even remember. Let me look at my notes. I don't remember what they talked about, if it was anything of substance. I genuinely don't think they talked about anything of substance, because they don't really have anything in common. And I would say that of the Holo-Roms that I've watched over the years, this one's not one of my favorites, because I just don't think they have any chemistry. Like, there's nothing there. I don't feel anything between the two of them outside of the fact that they're both attractive. So they bond over nothing. And so now we're going into day 3. Now we're going into day 3, and Jack has decided he's going to make himself useful instead of just sitting around the house watching TV. He watches some repair videos about how to repair a roof, because there's a lot of things that are broken in her house, but one of them is like her roof is leaking. So again, she just happens to have all of this stuff in her house. He's on the roof to be thirst trapped for a final time because he's fully shirtless. And again, he's very attractive, so he's very distracting. Plus, it's the winter time, so the neighbors are like, why are you out there like fully shirtless working on the roof? Anyway, not gonna lie, this scene that ensues is actually pretty funny. So it's a scene with I don't want to say an elderly lady because she's not elderly. She looks like she's maybe 50, but she's driving a car and she sees him on the roof. She doesn't crash, but she does sort of like double take, and then she like hard reverses and gets stuck in the snow. And then he comes down to help her. And all the things that they're saying back and forth is hilarious because of the sexual innuendo. So this whole scene was pretty funny for me. I'm not gonna lie. I had a fun time watching that scene. Yeah, and then he pushes her out of the snow, and that's the end of that scene. That's kind of one of my favorite parts of the movie. It's just that one 3 or 4 minute scene. It's kind of around this time that the movie's like, okay, we can't have you be shirtless because we're done thirst trapping you. You know, you're supposed to be the romantic lead for our girl. We need to move that part of it along. So you need to wear shirts for the rest of the movie, but you can have the sleeves rolled up. And I feel like there's a few other things that go on that I just don't think of any substance. Essentially, Kathy comes home. Jack not only decorated the whole house for her, okay, and then he also fixed her roof. I don't know why, but I get so stuck on these small things when I'm watching a movie. My dad would say that it's not germane to the story, but I get so distracted by it that it just physically bothers me. So like while I was watching this movie, I'm suspending my disbelief that she just happens to have everything on hand to be able to fix a roof. However, when she looks up at the roof, there's no indication that there was a leak. And the only way that I can think that's possible is you literally have to replace that section of the drywall. I assume, I'm not a roof expert. And then probably in order to make it look like there wasn't a patch, paint the entire ceiling because it looks like there's not a patch. I don't know why. It just bothers me. I know it's not really important, but I just wanted to point it out. Jack, he's not here when she comes home. I don't remember where he is, but he's off somewhere else. Definitely not laying low like she told him. He's off doing a bunch of other things. What we get is like what happens for like the rest of the movie. The next 45 minutes to the end of the movie is basically him helping the school set up the holiday school dance. He asks out Kathy to the dance. They go to the dance. They almost kiss twice, but they don't. Also, just some honorable mentions, some things that I just realized are in my script that I didn't mention. There's a Pretty Woman clothing try-on, but it's specifically for Jack, but it only lasts like a hot minute because, you know, I don't know. Men don't usually try on as much as we do. So like they go through like 2 outfits and that's it. I mean, maybe that's all they could afford in terms of licensing the song. But I forgot about that. There was that. And then I remember, you know, Kathy kind of expressly said to him, you need to stay low because the police are looking for you. And I remember this conversation that the two of them had, which was pretty hilarious, where he's basically giving this speech about how he wants to stand tall and he doesn't want to stay low and he wants to help people. And I'm like, huh? Buddy, she's not talking about like you know, staying in exile for the rest of your life. We're just talking about staying low because the police are looking for you. But like his reaction to her doing that is like, I'm going to stand tall. And it's like, what are you even talking about? So I forgot about those 2 things leading up to the dance, which was really boring, if I'm being honest. So essentially, after their middle school dance, where they almost kiss, a bunch of hijinks ensue in this order. Jack is arrested. The town rallies to get Jack out of jail because that's how it works in small towns. Jack almost dies. Maybe he does actually die. I don't know. Kathy kisses him, brings him back to life in front of the town, by the way. They're all just standing there watching because they're like, we got nothing else to do on a Wednesday. Anyway, Kathy's kiss not only brings him back to life, but it makes him a real boy, like an actual physical man, not a snowman in a man's body. And that's it. They end up being happily ever after, you know? Yeah, I could definitely see there's an audience for this. I know there's people who love stuff like this. It's probably the same group of people that watch like 50 Shades of Grey and they're like, this is romantic. This isn't a romantic one for me. Again, at a baseline, if you're going to be doing something like a like a Holo-Rom, you really need your leads to have chemistry. They need to be believable as being like attracted to each other. And I wasn't getting anything out of this. I just got the two people who are attractive, not necessarily attracted to each other. Okay. Realistically, being fully transparent, I don't expect too much out of these movies. I don't watch them with any kind of expectation that they're going to be like Oscar level quality, although there is a lot between an enjoyable movie and like Oscar level quality. However, I don't really like these deep fantasy movies, these like set of ridiculous circumstances that have to happen for two people to fall in love. I feel like as I've gotten older, the hollow rom-coms, or just rom-coms in general, that I like are way more practical, where like it's a series of events that are plausible and people don't fall madly in love after like, I don't know, a week or a few days of knowing each other. And in the case of these two, again, they do not have anything in common because he did not exist before a few days ago. And that brings up a really interesting point too, if you think about it. If you are setting up the premise that he came into existence and he would be mentally a child, so her falling in love with him opens up a whole new can of worms that I'm really surprised that nobody's like, this is disturbing. Nobody's like, this is strange. No, they're not thinking of it like that. And to me, I feel like this is like, I wouldn't say that it's an easy fix, but I think you can fix that by tweaking the script a little bit. Like, if it was me, I probably would invent some kind of town lore. Like, you know, this time around the holidays, there's always some kind of magical elements that happen, etc. You know what I mean? And not have him be somebody who has no kind of awareness. I would have him be, maybe he's like a snowman, aware, but not alive, just like observant or something like that. I'm just saying, like, you can make some tweaks that doesn't make it so creepy, but when you think of him as being mentally a child in an adult body, it's very disturbing that he's falling in love with Kathy. Again, they don't have any chemistry, so I don't get anything out of their scenes together. So now that being said, I'm gonna go into my favorite Holo-Rom, and I'm not in any way suggesting that this is an amazing movie. I'm just going to point out the reasons why I like it and why I think it's better than this movie. First off, the name of the movie is Operation Christmas Drop. It came out 2020, but it's on Netflix. It's one of their movies, so it's up there. It stars Alexander Ludwig and Kat Graham, who are both really good actors in their own right. What do I like about this? Well, before I did my research, it was very clear to me that they actually filmed on location because the movie takes place primarily in Guam, and it's pretty clear that they got permission to film on the Air Force base in Guam, which is huge, because I don't know if the military would be like, hey, yeah, you can film your Holo-Rom here. If Tom Cruise came to you, I'm sure you'd be like, yeah, definitely. But, you know, just a Netflix holiday rom. Okay. Anyway, so they did film physically on the air base in Guam. Second of all, and probably the most important, Kat Graham and Alexander Ludwig have very good natural chemistry. The movie is very much like an enemies to lovers kind of situation, so the banter that they have is A, believable of them just not liking each other in the beginning, and B, it's actually kind of funny. So, you know, you have those moments of comedy that they both do well. And then on top of that, one of my favorite things is that at the end of this movie, the two of them do not get engaged. She doesn't pledge to give up her life because she works in DC. She was sent to Guam for work. So she doesn't give up her life in DC for Andrew, who's the Alexander Ludwig. Yeah, they just have one kiss. And it's earned, and it's nice, and it's cute. And that's why I really like that movie. The movie is cute, it's sweet. I enjoy watching it because there's not this big, grandiose gestures of love. They didn't get engaged or married or anything like that at the end of it. And it's just, to me, it's a much better Holo-Rom for me and what I like to see when I watch a holiday rom-com. I want to see just practicality during the holidays with some holiday lights. That's all I want. So for me, overall, Hot Frosty is kind of in that category of Holo-Roms that I don't like, the ones that are just so cheesy and like ridiculous and like over the top. They're just laughable, but like not in a funny way. They did get me with the title though. Part of me thinks if they had leaned into like full thirst trap, it might have been like better. Like maybe if they'd gone full comedy with it. Like I said, that sequence with him and the woman that looked like she was in her 50s was pretty hilarious, but it's only one segment of the movie in the middle of the movie. You know what I mean? It's not like the whole movie is not really that tone. So yeah, I mean, Hot Frosty is on Netflix for you to watch with the rest of theirs. Let me know in the comments below if you actually gave this one a watch. Did you like it? If so, why? If you didn't like it, let me know. And let me know if you have a favorite Holo-Rom. Like I said, mine is Operation Christmas Drop. It's worth a watch if you're interested. It's pretty good. All right. Like, comment, subscribe. That's my time. Catch you later. Bye.